Strike in the steel and engineering sector is over. Numsa has accepted an above-inflation wage offer of 6%. The National Employers Association of South Africa is joining us now to give us reaction on that landmark wage agreement with Numsa. We're now joined by NEASA's CEO, Gerhard Papenfus. Gerhard, thank you for making time. What's your reaction? The strike is finally over. It's been a difficult couple of weeks.
Yeah, of course, we're glad this strike's over. The deal that that's being done this afternoon is not with us. We couldn't reach an agreement with SIFSA, with Numsa. Our approach wasn't acceptable to them, but nevertheless, we are glad the strike is over. We are glad that people can return to work, that industry can return to normality, although there won't be normality tomorrow. There will be, on the days to come, there will be huge backlogs. And, this strike cost the industry a lot of money, and the country is a bit poorer after the strike.
And how long? I mean, this strike came at a time when the industry was still trying to recover from the restrictions that have come with the COVID-19 pandemic. There's losses in output. How much are we talking there? I know over 100 million rand, the employers were telling us, has been lost in wages. This is the impact that the workers have felt. How long do you think it's going to take before you are back to the pre-strike, so to speak, levels?
One can, to extent you have to guess how long it will take. Sorry for this. It is a bit of guesswork, but it's a matter of months. But return financially to this thing is, you never come back to the point where you would have been if the strike hasn't happened. I mean, some companies, I've spoken to many companies called me during the strike and says to me, listen, we just cannot continue. The losses are simply too big. But you know what? That is the nature of the power play in this type of battles. Unfortunately, there are industry role players that's affected, which simply wasn't necessary to be affected. There were businesses that made offers of 10% to the workers on condition that there wasn't a strike. 8%, 10%. Now, I don't know what they're going to do, but I mean, the damages, the penalties that companies are paying simply because they're not, haven't met their timetables. That's huge. So, companies don't close; they recover, but you can't make up what you've lost. But you've lost. And workers will return. There will be retrenchments after the strike. There will be workers working on short time. And you know what workers that return to work or is in strike need to realize is this. There are companies that worked on 50% of with their 50% of their staff and maintained production. Now, what does it say? It tells that company you can actually work with 50% of his staff. That's the danger. Companies that says, 50% of my workforce stands outside, and you know what? It's okay. I'm coping very, very well. In fact, so well that they don't have to return. Yeah. So that's the other side of the coin.
Yeah.
And that's dangerous. So when they return, this company will restructure. So, when this this thing burns on both sides.
Yeah, and I suppose, I imagine unions would not be happy to even hear of even possible retrenchments after the strike. And I wanted to ask you about the impact on jobs because, and you touched on it to say there are going to be retrenchments because the prolonged industrial action would have threatened more job losses. But as you say, the impact has been made. What's lost has been lost. You don't also want to, as employers, somehow anger the unions by saying, well, we actually realized that we can survive with just 50% of the workforce, because when 50% of the force was out striking, we had 50% of people working and we were able to survive. So how do you balance that to avoid the unions again taking to the streets to protest now against retrenchments and job losses?
You know what, the nature of private business is that when you realize you don't need a certain number of staff, then you retrench. That's the reality. A private business do not carry more staff than they need to carry. And that is the reality, but that's not only the case now. This has been happening for many, many years. You know, this industry now employ as many employees as it did in 1970. So, you know, while the South African population has doubled and more than doubled, the steel industry didn't grow. And it is a result of policies, industrial policy, and labor arrangements where employers, where business doesn't grow. And every time this type of thing happens, business say, you know, can I make another plan? I cannot go through this again. Is there another plan? You know, this is of course a big crisis the world is facing in the fifth industrial revolution, modernization, automation. You know, we have types of work in South Africa that is not actually necessary to have workers. Now, that is something we need to manage very carefully, because what do you do with an employment rate of already 44% and a youth unemployment rate of 65%? What do you do? And I think this type of action that we've just seen, which wasn't fortunately that as bad as it was in 2017, especially 2014. That is this type of thing that business says, look, I'm not going to go through this again. I've got to make another plan and bite the bullet and retrench people. Now, do we want to do this as an organization? Do we want that to happen? Of course not. What do you do in a country with a 44% unemployment rate? We need to work on that. And we need to find a way. This industry is the most expensive industry under any collective bargaining arrangement. Most expensive. The second most expensive industry is about 40% cheaper. So, you know, a lawyer, I haven't studied, with an LLB, admitted, will struggle to find a job in the market now on the level of an entry-level employee, 12,700 Rand. I can employ a lawyer for 12,000 Rand today. If we advertise the position, we get hundreds of lawyers who apply for positions. They just want to get a foot in the door. And I tell you, that's not what we do. But if you offer them 12,000 Rand, you'll get a lawyer. But this industry will pay a entry-level employee with no experience, no education, also 12,000 Rand. 12,000, it will now be beyond 13,000 Rand a month. You know what? And I'm not saying this is a good salary. I'm saying is you can't create jobs on the lowest level, on that level. You just cannot do that.
All right, Gerhard, thank you so much for speaking to us. Gerhard Papenfus is with the National Employers Association of South Africa.